Today's rum tasting, I'm going to be taking on Flor De Cana 7. It's a rum that I've had behind the bar here for quite a long while. And for some reason, I've never spoken about it. So let's dive in. So the thing I can probably say in its defence, it probably does get overshadowed by the Flor De Cana 12-year-old, which we'll get down. And I kind of want to do a little comparison actually as well. I should have had that down to the start. But this was one of the first rums that I got when I kind of niched down into rum almost, 18, 19, 20 months ago now behind it. So it's been here behind the bar. I've used it in cocktail tests. I don't recall ever kind of playing about and just sampling it neat up until like the last sort of couple of weeks and just kind of think, right, I had it in my head I was going to film this video, so let's get back used to it. Now, at the price point, the Flor De Cana 12 actually used to be a little bit cheaper with inflation and stuff happening in the UK and the global economy and all that malarkey. It's actually gone up quite a bit. Even I'm just looking at Master of Malt and it's about £35 compared to this, which is £25. So it's got a bit of a tenner difference. When I did niche down, this was under 30 quid. So it was kind of victim in the fact that for me, in my head, and was a nicer rum. I did prefer that, and for the extra £5, it was just a no-brainer just to kind of have that instead of that. But is that a disservice? Should Flor De Cana 7 get more love? I can't give you too many facts about Flor De Cana as well, other than it's a Nicaraguan rum. I can't tell you how it's distilled. I've got no knowledge except for its column still. I never see too many sugar tests or dosage tests of how much sugar's added to it. We kind of don't know. We just kind of have to guess there. So it's traditionally Spanish style column still rums, which I do kind of like. From Nicaragua. That's as far as I can get. 25 quid, 40% ABV. Now, just before I dive into that, I'm just going to pour myself a little bit of the 12 here because I just want to again, it's only at Rumfest where I've kind of had a tiny minuscule sample and done this side by side. So I'll just leave that just to get a bit of air for 1 second. There's a big thing with Flor De Cana. Is it actually 7 years old? Is it actually a 12-year-old rum? I cannot say for certain. There's so many different labels around the world. Some will say, this one is still aged. This is 12, aged naturally. In the UK, we have got 12 years old written on there. We've also got 12 something else. There are so many flipping labels, different descriptors of that 12. We don't actually know. I cannot say for certain it's a 12-year-old rum and a 7-year-old rum. There was another theory touted to me a few weeks back that actually it is not an average age, but a loose age, if you like. So, for instance, there might be a 5-year-old rum in there might be a 10-year-old rum in there, but the vast majority of it is 7 years old. So, I don't know. There, as far as I can tell, there are absolutely no kind of official lines out there. We don't really have what I would call proper brand ambassadors that I know of in the UK to sort of kind of ask them, and that they are distributed in the UK by a sort of a biggish brand. And I was going to say something else then, but it's White and Mackay. I just had to double check that. So it's White and Mackay. You might have heard them from Scotch, obviously. They make White and Mackay as a brand of Scotch as well, but they've got a lot of brands. So we haven't really got access to the facts in this. So all we can do is take that at face value. It says 7 on there, it's 25 quid, it's 40% ABV, and it comes from Nicaragua, and it's column still. Now, bearing in mind, as I say, this bottle's been open for 18 months. This bottle's been open for 18 months. There's plenty of air that's got to it. The notes have sort of rounded off a little bit. I've seen that more and more recently, actually. When you open a new rum, like the first sort of day or so, it's kind of like, whoo, it's not until it sort of mellows out a little bit after a few weeks, maybe a month or so, it just completely changes. It's like wine. It's not going to go off though like wine, but I always use this example of a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. First day, first couple of hours of a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, decent. Marlborough, I'm talking, decent. But 24 hours in after opening, 48 hours in, that is beast mode. When that air reacts to the actual wine in the bottle, that is when New Zealand Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc comes into its own. And certain rums I've noticed are the same now for doing this. So, this has had plenty of air interaction. On the old nostrils, It's plenty of sort of fruit notes on there. Yes, there's a bit of vanilla. Yes, there's a tiny bit of oak on there as well. But for me, the big majority note of that is fruit. And while I do sort of get that sort of mixed fruit vibe, maybe like figs or dates or something like that, probably dates and raisins, that sort of thing more than anything, there is this little bit of tropical sort of fruit that comes up. Now, generically, with column still, for me, with Spanish style column still, I do kind of get stone fruit, apricot, peaches, those kind of fruits. I don't necessarily get this off this one. I actually get the more sort of tropical fruit. I actually get, I wouldn't say it's pineapple, but kind of along, I don't think it's passion fruit either. It might be sort of, I don't know. My head went to papaya. I don't know why. I don't think it's mango, but a kind of that sort of papaya-y note. That's kind of what I get. But the other things just coming off there, just having a whiff now for, you know, a minute or so, there is a certain nutty element to it as well. I couldn't, potentially hazelnut. I'm not a huge nut fan. I can distinguish hazelnuts and almonds, and if Brazil nuts, I do like a Brazil nut. It's not a Brazil nut. Macadamia is another one I do like as well. And pistachio. Oh, they're all on peanuts. Oh, yeah, there's a few. Honey roast peanuts though. Smells nothing like that. There is this nuttiness to it, a little bit chocolate that's coming off there. But I would say on the whole, it is vanilla and fruit, but the emphasis is on that fruit note. Now on the tasting, this is actually lovely. Really good. Easy drinker. Session rum, 40%. So I would think nothing of having a couple of glasses of this, 2, 3, 4 glasses, you know, if someone bought a bottle round and we were just sipping that, absolutely no problem sipping that neat at all. And it's the 40% ABV that helps with that as well. Very rounded rum. There is nothing for me punching out in any one direction. Yes, there's a bit of vanilla there. Yes, there's a bit of wood there as well from the aging. Yes, there's a bit of fruit there. Yes, there's a bit of spice there, but it's all very rounded. It's not one thing more than anything else. I get as much fruit as I do vanilla. I get as much sort of oakiness as I do kind of the fruit as well. It's really lovely. And it's very reminiscent of the nose as well. I get the vanilla. It's a different sort of wood. I don't know. I think it's oak. I think it's actually second fill oak that they've used in this, I think. So in other words, the barrel will have been used once before. And I think that's the thing. From what I've seen, I'm not sure whether that means it's been bourbon and then rum, or whether it's just, whether that actually means obviously it's a bourbon barrel and then it's been used rum once and then, you know, this has been put in it. I don't kind of know what it's sort of, I've seen sort of second fill and that, and I don't kind of know how that actually translates. But I would say it's a different, I'll tell you what it actually is. Now thinking about it, sitting on it, it actually kind of reminds me of like a plantation finish, which would hint to me like a cognac finish. But there is like a little bit of fruitiness to it. But yeah, vanilla, a light, lovely oakiness wood. Dried, plump, fruity notes. Plump, dried fruits, if you like raisins and that. But I also do get, I'm going to have a stab here. There's a little element of coconut. A little element. Don't think anything like coconut rum in your face. But it is this sort of coconutty kind of vibe that I get off it. That it's like, ooh, really tasty. So easy to drink. I'm just trying to pick out the sort of, if that hazelnut that's on the nose, I'm not really picking out on the taste. I don't think there's any kind of nuttiness on the taste. It's there on the aroma, but not on the taste. Do you know what, right? I don't typically score rums because I'm just trying to give you tasting notes so you can decide for yourself whether you want to buy it or not. I don't, you know, I used to, because, you know, back in the day, like a few years ago, I used to give it scores and do the whole RUM-X thing with like out of 100 and all that. I am not here to say something's good or bad or that, because everyone has a different taste. Everyone has a different profile. Even my tasting notes now, some of you will disagree with. So I think it's kind of my view, I think it's kind of bad or doing it a disservice to give it a score out of 5, a score out of 10, a score out of 100, because my score will differ greatly to what your score. It's even, you know, as I say, with the whole tasting notes, again, very different. But I just try and describe something so you can make your own mind up. Now, for those of us in column still rums, chocolate coffee. Oh, a bigger swill, a bigger gulp, and there's chocolate and coffee off that. Roll it around your tongue. Oh, that's interesting. A bigger gulp, more than a tiny sip, and you read those chocolate coffee notes come out. That's really fascinating on there. What I was going to say, for those of us in column still world, I think that is a great rum. And there's been a couple of occasions now where I've kind of had to pick, recently, where I had to pick between a price point, Bacardi 4 and Flor De Cana 7. And both times I've gone Flor De Cana 7. That is the sort of rum comparison that I would do. I would go Havana, purely because of column still, but I'll go Havana, Bacardi and Flor De Cana. And most of the time I'm going Flor De Cana. For my taste, for my profile, for what I love to enjoy, I think that Flor De Cana 7 is lovely. I know it makes good rum and cokes. I know it makes good sort of rum mixers. I know it plays well in cocktails. Not generically the best cocktail rum that I've got, but does a very good job. And at 25 quid, it seems to me a no-brainer. But how does it compare to the 12? Now, this is interesting. On the nose, actually, the 12, way fruitier. The wood, which is weird because obviously with the 7, you know, if we are taking it at face value that that's a 12-year-old and that's a 7-year-old, I don't think it is. But if we are taking that, you can say, well, that spent 5 years longer in a barrel. You would expect more kind of wood vibes come out of that. Actually, do you know what? There's more fruit vibes come off that than what there ever does on that. And that could be down to the barrel, depending what barrel's been used. But way fruitier. You know, and this is where there's sort of the stone fruit, definitely peachy, apricot. I think not burying my nose right in there, but just sort of there, about an inch away from my nose. I think I kind of pick up apple on that as well. I definitely don't off that. But then I do also get that sort of vanilla-y and oak notes in there, but it is way more fruit dominated. I would say, whereas that's completely rounded, nothing really shines above everything else. I think this one does. I think this is way in the fruit elements. Now, this is kind of interesting. I really do like the 12. It tastes completely different. It's still got that lightness to it. Would I pick it's the same distillery? I would pick its column still. I'm pretty convinced I'd pick its column still. I would not mistake it for Havana. I would not mistake it for Bacardi or anything like that. I'm not saying, you know, if you put other column still rums in front of me, I'm not saying I would pick out that it's Flor De Cana. I would be able to eliminate a few. Let's put it like that. If I'm being, this is the tough call, right? Where I'm going for this. If you like a fruitier note to your rum, even though it's £10 more, I would urge you to go more the Flor De Cana 12. I think that's a really great rum. However, if you like the rumminess where everything's all rounded in one place and nothing really shines through, I think the Flor De Cana I think the Flor De Cana 7 is more suited to rum enthusiasts than the 12 is, if that makes sense. I think the 12 is more suited to us that like a bit of fun early on in the rum journey. You know, we're not too overwrought by 50, 80, £100 rums. I think that's there. But I think that would appeal more to the rum connoisseur because the rum does shine through and it's a rounded kind of vibe. And I really don't know how to sway you one way or the other because they are completely different rums and there's a tenner separating them as well. If you're thinking you're going to get a similar style from the 12 compared to the 7, no. I don't think you do. I think you get a very different style of rum coming through there. Fruitier, rounded, you know. Which one do I enjoy? Personally, I enjoy the 12 more. But I'm not saying I dislike the 7. You know, the 7 is quite happily a go-to drink. I think the 7 for me works better. Here we go. Here's how to finish the video. I think the 7 for me works better as a mixer, better as like a rum and coke, a rum and ginger, a cocktail rum, because I think the fruitier notes outshine that a little bit. But neat sipping, I'm going for the 12.